Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello MMR.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm a little late tonight, but I'm finally here. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really do appreciate it. Hope you'll come back often and hope you'll tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I'd like to turn to Father Ron Walthers for our prayer for the show. Father? Unmute. You're muted, Father.
O God, as we express our creativity in creating in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father. We really do appreciate it. Well, now I'd like to turn to our website for just a minute. And we evidently had a problem this week because some of you did not get the emails that we send out once a week with the login links for our Zoom show. I don't know what the problem is, but we're going to try to get it fixed right quick. But if you did not get an email from our website about tonight's show, if you could send me an email, jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. I'm trying to find out exactly how many people and who they are so we can try to trace where the problem is in our website and identify it so we can get it straightened out. So if you did not get an email, and it would have been on Tuesday, it would have been yesterday sometime when the email came, and the login link that was on it for Zoom said Zoom in bright, in bold color in it. If you did not get that email, if you could send me an email, then we'll be in a better position to find out what went wrong and try to solve that problem. Again, my email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. While you're at our website, hope you'll subscribe to it if you haven't already done so. That way you will get the login link, assuming there's not a mistake made, each week and an email from us. And that'll give you the capability to join us live on Zoom. It'll also give you the capability to find all about our scholarship program. We had a very successful first year, and we're hoping that we're going to improve and do an awful lot more and better here our second year with our scholarship. So to get to our scholarship on our website, it's newtracksmodeling.com/scholarship. There's a QR code. If you'll click on the QR code, that'll take you to the Zephy site where you can make a donation to our scholarship fund. And we would appreciate so much any assistance that you can give us. No question about it. We've got some great, really talented young model railroaders that need our help with their educational costs. And we would appreciate so much your assistance in helping us get as much as we can in scholarships fund this year for them. Our next My Build is coming up on the 20th of this month, 2 weeks from now. Chris Corse is the host of that, so I will turn it over to you, Mr. Corse.
Thanks, Jim. I'll get the share screen up here, maybe. There we go. Okay. All right. The next My Build is September 20th, and you can email your photos to me, railrunner130@hotmail.com. And it's a free for all. So there's not really there's no subject on this month's My Build. However, next month, there's for the October challenge, it's going to be Halloween. So whatever you can do to fit into the Halloween theme, haunted houses, abandoned buildings, abandoned railroad cars, scarecrows, derelict engines, fall scenes, pumpkins, trick-or-treaters, whatever you have that that could fit in the theme of Halloween. That one will be on October 18th. And again, you can send those photos to me now at railrunner130@hotmail.com. And I will turn it back over to you, Jim.
Thank you so much, Chris. And this one in October is October the 18th. The one after that is November the 22nd. So we hope that you'll start building something if you haven't, and get your information to Chris as far in advance as you can. Because he needs time in order to put everything together and make sure that everybody can get on the show for the time that they want to. The modeling lifestyle show is coming back. The next one that we have is on the 28th of September with Martin Breckbill, MMR. He's going to be our guest, and he's going to be joined by 3 of his friends that are going to help us understand who and what Martin has really done for our hobby. He's made a tremendous contribution, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing about what he's done and the comments that his friends make about him. So hope you can join us. That's a Thursday evening. It's only available to watch live on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, but it'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on September the 28th. Now, with that said, I'd like to go ahead and start our show. And we have a really special guest with us to start with, Nicholas Kalis. Nicholas is really a devotee of small layouts, which I think really are really important to our hobby. We don't maybe hear about them that much. We may not see them in the magazines and all. We see these gigantic layouts, but most of us just don't have the space, the time, or the resources to build a large layout like that. So the small layouts, the dioramas, even the micro layouts, the layouts that we take to our club and put together with other people's layouts, we call them modules. Those are extremely important to our hobby. So I'm really pleased to have Nicholas join us tonight. Nicholas, thank you so much. Is Nicholas muted or not here? Or what?
I don't see him.
I don't see a Nicholas anywhere. There's one iPhone, but it has Cliff, so I'm assuming that's a Cliff, not a Nicholas. So
Okay.
I think we're missing him. Why don't we jump and maybe we can try to contact him?
Yeah, that's fine. Let me go to Gary Shurgold, MMR. And Gary has got a really special project for you. And he's building a Walthers plastic kit of their company stores. And I promise you, when he's finished, it won't look plastic. Gary, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. Okay, share screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that.
Yep.
Yes. Good. So what we're going to talk about tonight is the company house. We're going to go from plastic to wood.
Gary, why don't you throw it into
Push.
slideshow? Move your
Yeah.
mouse down the bottom right. Click that. There you go. Cool.
Okay, sorry. Oh, here we are. Okay, great. Okay, as I said, this is the company house, plastic to wood, and I'd like to thank Walthers for providing this kit. It was a fun project, and yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the kit. I'm going to see what's in the box, And then we're going to do a little bit of talking about making plastic look like wood. So what we have is, this is the kit, and it comes with 2 buildings. And these are little houses that employees would have lived in. Same kit again. And this is the blueprint, or the footprint of the building. It's only 6 7/16 long and 2 13/16 wide. It is a nice little kit. And what we get in the kit is actually 2 of these buildings. So you can see on here, we have the ends, sides, some of the bottom foundations. There's a little porch on the back. We have a set of curtains and blinds that you can use. These are the doors, windows of the kit. And over here is the foundation, roofing, and porches back and front. So this is what you get inside. And when you open this up, what you want to do is divide this up, put 1 set aside and 1 set to work on. Or if you're ambitious, you can do both at the same time. Now, you're going to have to get a little gathering of tools. What you're going to need is some plastic glue, snippers, a nice chisel, flat, wide chisel, razor blade, nice hobby knife, and these are razor saws. So you're going to need 1 of these. And this here, I'll explain a little later what that is. So basically, you're going to use this quite a bit. This, you don't need to have a handle on it. It works a lot better if you have 1 of these. Now, what I had done was I had taken a spare 1 of these, and you can see I cut it up into the diameter that would fit my knife. And this is a little blade holder. And I made these blades. And what this basically is this, only cut down into small pieces. And here is another shot just showing what these things look like. And these will fit into here. So what you want to do is, what I did was just for demonstration purposes, I took a piece of styrene. This is plastic styrene. And you take your razor saw and you draw in 1 direction down each board. This is very tedious and takes a long time. So just relax and draw that blade down each board. What you want to do is you want to put graining in the board. And you only do this 1 direction, and you only do it once. Don't try to keep going over and over, or you'll ruin the plastic. So what you do is you draw it down, and you can see here I'm using that other knife. But basically what you want to do is down, down, down. Sorry, in 1 direction. Each board, that's actually the wood in the model. So once you do that, so what you're going to do is each one of these pieces is wood siding, and you're going to scribe each board all the way down. 1 direction.
Got a pointer, Gary?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, there you go.
I'm sorry, yeah. So what you want to do is draw that blade down each board. It takes time, but believe me, it'll be worthwhile. Then if we flip over here, I've done the same thing. These are the other sides, and I did exactly the same thing here. And there's the side without with the scribing already put in. You can just see right along here, the grain that has been added to the plastic siding. A little closer view, that's not scribed. And then this is now scribed. So you can see the wood grain that's now been put into the plastic. This is probably the, it's not hard, it's just the most tedious part of the project. And you're going to do this on all wooden surfaces of this model. And there's quite a lot. Now, what I did was I'm showing the foundation here. And these are the little foundation boards. Now, you do exactly the same thing. And when you're working on this, pay attention to, okay, this is a complete line, so you would scribe all the way this way. And then what you do is you come down and you subscribe this way now, down, all the way along. So you follow the pattern that the wood would be. You don't want to be scribing this way because you're going to ruin it. So come straight down where the wood would be along, and the same as along here, along the top. And same with the ends. Now you have your flashing that goes along the building. So what you would do is you would scribe straight down this way, and you'd scribe straight down this way on this side, and then on this side. You've already done all this prior to starting the ends. And same here, you can see the scribing. I've now put wood grain into the plastic. And the same with the boards that go this way here. This is the back and this is the front of the building. Same thing here, you follow the lines and then straight down. Now, what you'll get here is you'll get roofing parts. This here is the roof, and these are foundation parts. These are the front porch and the back porch. Right, I'm sorry, this is the roof of the back porch, and the roof of the, or the front porch and the back porch. This is the porch itself, and you'll have to go in and scribe all those boards that are on that back porch. And the front porch, exactly the same thing. These boards run this way, so you're going to be scribing all these with that razor saw, board by board, till you get it done. And you don't have to press really hard. And remember, don't go, once you've gone once, that's enough. Don't do it again, because you're going to ruin the plastic. Get my cursor. Okay, here's the, I was explaining to you, that's the back porch, front porch, nice boards. And this is them scribed. Each board, I went with that razor saw, and you can see the grain. The grain is really nice. It comes out quite nice. So then we go over to the windows, and there's a little more of that siding there, or that bottom part of the foundation that you'll use. The banisters, railings. And what you're going to do is you're going to go over each one of these. You're going to follow the straight line and scribe across here, and then you're going to scribe down. Don't try to scribe in here. You can try it if you wish, but it's really difficult because these doors are set in. It's really hard to get the razor saw down in there. So what I did was I went over the doors, all the porch, not these ones here, but all down on the bottom post and the top rail of the railing. Same with here, one way, and then down the other way. You can do these if you wish, but it's not necessary. And then over here on the windows, what I did was I went down the windows here and along here, along here, along the sides, going in the direction that the grain would normally go, and just across the top here, very lightly. Don't try to do these because they'll break. There's the door I was telling you about, okay, along here. Now, what I've also done is, when you get plastic kits, these kits, when they're molded, is a continuous mold. So you don't have joints. And in a wooden kit, you get the actual joints. So what you're going to do is very carefully take your knife, very sharp knife, and you're going to put joint marks in there. Here, 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 and here. And it was the same with the windows. You're going to go back to the windows and you're going to put a joint mark where the joint marks would normally be. If you were making this window, it would be 4 pieces. So you want to make this look like it's actually 4 pieces. Plastic molding, it looks like one solid piece, but you want to put those little marks. And you'll put those little marks in everywhere that you find items, like there'll be your knife would cut into right there at that joint, cut in a little mark on here and here, same with here. And you go through every single one of the windows and you do that. Same with the doors. You can see here where I've scribed. This one's not, and this one's got the scribing put in to make it look like wood. Now, this method I'm going to show you here, you don't have to do, but it really adds a little bit of realism to your model. Once you get your scribing done, what you want to do is you want to take the razor saw and very gently cut a very thin hole, like not just a little cut line right in the board. And you can put you'll see later on where I've done it on the model. On the model. So you put a little cut line there. And then what you do very, very gently, you go underneath where that cut line is, and you put the edge of your razor and just very slowly work it under there. You don't want to do too long one, just a short one. And you want to get this to cut down in and up. Now, if you push too hard with this blade, what you're going to do is you're going to break that off. Don't worry about that, because boards do break off the sides of building. But the idea is just to very gently get underneath with the razor and raise that slightly. And what you'll get is, you'll get this. You want to raise that board just to make it look like the board is old and it's starting to rise up where the joint is. Okay, now what you can do too is, these are like, I do this on the model and I put these randomly. Normally I put them down near the lower part of the wall that I'm working on, or you can put them on the upper part. You can also take that blade and you can cut, like what I did was boards like that. This building's approximately, I think 25 feet scale, HO scale feet long. So boards don't come in 25-foot lengths. So you can take this method here and you can scribe lines here and there. So what I did was all the long boards on the building, what I did, I came along, like if there was a window here, I didn't do it on those boards. But the boards that were the full length of the building, what I did was I put a little notch just to show that the boards are broken up into maybe 18 feet long or whatever. And we're going to end it there. Now, if you got one of these kits, you can start working on that scribing that I showed. And next week, we're going to be working on the foundation. And we're going to change the foundation and make it into a stone foundation, whatever type of material you wish to do. And I did this because the model itself, I didn't like the bottom part of the building. It didn't, it looked like a poured concrete building, and it just didn't look right. So what we're going to talk about next week is working on the foundation and making it look like it's stone. Okay. And that's about it for now. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Gary?
Yeah, I do. If I can get my
Yes.
hand up there. There it is. Gary, this has nothing to do with your construction, which I think is excellent. What kind of camera are you using to look down on your work?
It's actually my iPad.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's an iPad. It's got very fantastic resolution.
It was,
It's-
but the depth of field was good, was better than what I've got, and the width, the wide angle was much better. I've got a little camera. I think I need to get a new one. It's just like a camera that goes on your computer so you can talk to people, but it's really not great for what I do weathering clinics, and in order for anybody past the front row to see anything, I need to project it on a screen.
Right. Yeah,
So-
like I have an Apple iPad.
Yeah, I got one
Yeah.
right here. My internet went out a few minutes ago and I was trying to switch over to my iPad. Then it came back
Yeah.
on. So
I have found that the iPad has just as great resolution as my I have a Nikon or a Nikon D50.
oh, okay.
I use that quite a bit, but since my daughter got me the iPad for Christmas, and the camera part of it's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I use it for camera a lot. But anyway, back to the construction. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very
Gary?
welcome. Thanks.
Gary?
Yes. Yes.
I think it's important to point out too, it depends on what scale you're working in, but the little saws that you use, if you're in HO or N, you want to use the finest teeth that you can find in the saw, because obviously if you use the fewer number of teeth in your saw, it's going to make a out of scale pattern on your wood.
That's correct. Yeah, like I have mine, the blade that I showed you, I should have mentioned it. And thanks for mentioning it. It's a very fine tooth razor saw. And that's the best to use.
Gary, can you, how did you cut the blade?
Good.
What I used was, I actually have a pair of scissors that is designed to cut thin metal. And that's what I used to cut it with, was those scissors. They're metal cutting. Well, they're a pair of scissors, but they've got a special edge on them. Like it's a very fine, when you look at it, it looks like a file, but it's not. And it cuts metal beautifully.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Gary, I have a question, unless I just missed the answer. I was listening on YouTube while I was walking the dog. How did you cut apart your saw to make the little pieces?
Yeah, I used a pair of scissors that have got a special edge on them.
Oh, like metal shears?
I'm sorry?
Like
oh,
metal
they're-
shears?
They're not metal shears, but they're they're a pair of scissors that is, they cut paper and cardboard and thin plastic, but they're, you can also cut very thin metal. Now, I'm sure everyone has a razor saw. So you know how thick that is. These scissors will actually cut that.
Okay, thank
Maybe
you.
you could show that to us next week. That scissors.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah,
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll take a picture of that and I'll put it into the program. And next week I'll show you those scissors.
Gary,
Thank you.
also, I wanted to mention that in my experience of trying to turn plastic into wood, I've also had to clean up a little bit of the plastic after putting the grain in, because there's little fine pieces of plastic all over the place. Maybe I'm pressing too hard, but often I have to use some steel wool to kind of clean up the plastic after I put the grain in.
Right. You can also use a very fine sandpaper and very gently go over it with a sandpaper, especially around the door and window openings. Because as you're scraping, you're going to be pulling bits of plastic to that opening. That has to be cleaned.
Any other questions for Gary? Gary, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim.
Well, now I want to turn to a very special guest, Pete Steinmetz. And Pete and I talked a while back, and he said, you know, I've done a clinic on glue. And I said, well, you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about different glues. I'd love to see you do that kind of a clinic on our show. Well, tonight, Pete's going to do that on our show. So Pete, welcome. Thank you so much. You're muted. So
you're muted, Pete.
Pete, you're muted.
Oh, I know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there we go. This is my first Zoom in this new house, and I'm trying to get my lighting right. And I'm always kind of a weirdo to want to be properly lit. So here I am sitting outside. I want to be able to show you the glue that I've got. Gary, what kind of glue do you use on your kit that you're building? What brand?
You're muted, Gary.
I showed the bottle there. Just 1 second. Just a second.
I think it was Faller Expert.
Yep.
Oh, awesome. My man.
Hard to get that stuff.
It is.
It is Faller Expert.
Here's
Yep.
the expert. Here's
Yes.
the super expert.
Oh, boy.
I first got these and I just tried them on a whim. I was in Germany, and I go to this shop in Berlin when I go over there, and I just grabbed them, brought them home, tried them out. They were great. I really liked them. That's pretty much my go-to for styrene glues. One of the reasons I like them is they're not all runny like the Tamiya. This stuff's like liquid. It'll go everywhere. You got to really watch it or you'll end up with a mess. Anyway, and also I've got another one that's also runny, very liquidy. It's Ammo of MIG, and I don't know why this isn't coming out right. There we go.
Go ahead and turn off your virtual background. The problem is when you get outside of where you are, the virtual background takes over. So click the little arrow up to the right of the stop video, down on the bottom left, of your screen. There'll be next to the stop video, there's a little uptick. Click on that.
It looks like a movie camera.
Yeah, next to the movie camera that says
Yeah, I
stop
see
video.
it.
Click on the little up arrow, and it should say choose virtual background.
Yeah, it does. I'm trying to choose one.
Choose none. Just choose none. Choose the
Okay,
one
let
that
me
says
find it.
none.
I don't know if there's one. Does that work? No.
No, you didn't get it
trying
off.
to get. There wasn't a none there.
There should be.
You know, you say
here we go.
blank.
Let's choose virtual background.
Should be the upper left one. You might need to scroll up to the top. But it should say none and then blur next to it.
I think he has his blur background on.
That's why I think his blur is
Yeah,
on.
I do.
So it should be none, should say right there. There you go.
There we
That's
go.
great. There we go. Cool.
Just click the blur background check mark and it went away. Okay. So and you can see why, because the shadow comes down off of the trellis I've got on top there. But so anyway, this is the ammo of MIG. Primarily, they make a lot of stuff that's designed for the military modelers. However, they just came out with a line of paint designed for railroad. MIG is a closet model railroader, but a big time tank guy. Good stuff. I'm going to get some of it and probably do some type of article or review of it. I don't know if you guys know this. A Microscale makes something called micro liquid tape. And this is real interesting because it's not real sticky. Like if you want to just put a screw somewhere to just hold it up while you screw it in, this is the stuff, because it's definitely not permanent. I find that I use it a lot because a lot of the gluing I do does not need to be permanent. I'm just holding something or I just want some quickie sticky thing that I don't want to be permanent. I want to be able to take it off, maybe gluing containers together on top of an intermodal, that kind of thing. If you guys have questions or comments, please, this is an interactive clinic. I first did this at an NMRA meet to see how it would go, and it went very well. People had a lot of opinions on glues. I mean, a lot of us have been doing it since we were kids and using tubes of testers and getting high in our basement and not really realizing it. Then they changed the formula. One of the things that I found that I really like a lot, and this is my go-to glue, is the Formula 560. I don't know if you guys use this. It's a white glue. They call it canopy glue. One of the really, really nice features of it is it dries clear. So you can put it on something, and if there's a tad spillage or whatever, it just dries clear and it disappears. You cannot put stain over the top of it. It will not take the stain. So I recommend you do all your staining before you use this, but this glues pretty much anything I want. There's a couple of different brands. That was the Pacer brand. There's a Zap brand that I just got. Supposedly same formula. It seems to be, I've only had it for a couple of weeks, but it's good stuff. I highly recommend, if you get nothing out of this whole clinic, get a Formula 560, and it's pretty available anywhere they have like airplanes or tanks or stuff like that. A lot of the train stores that are strictly train stores don't have it. Here's another one that I found. Some model railroader turned me onto. It's called Crafter's Pick. Michaels has it. Hobby Lobby has it. It's reasonably inexpensive. I think this whole bottle was like $5.99, but it lasts a long time, and it's really good stuff. They say it's like super glue, only in a white glue format, and it really will glue stuff together pretty permanently. I use it a lot, and I'm not a big fan of super glue, and I'll get to that in a minute. But this stuff is good stuff. In fact, my bottle is kind of drying out on me a little bit before I've even gotten close to it. What I use to apply it, I just go by round toothpicks. I use these things I use them a lot. I use them for that. I use them for all kinds of things. And they come in real handy. They're cheap. You just throw them away when you're done. Me being a frugal model railroader, I kind of keep them going as long as I can, over and over again before I chuck them in the trash. But I'm sure none of you guys are frugal. You probably just all use them once. Zap. I bet everybody's got some Zap or some super glue or crazy glue or whatever they have around. I'm not a big fan of super glue. I just have had problems with it. The real thin stuff has a tendency to run. The thick stuff, I mean, it's pretty good. What I find though is I go buy a nice bottle of super glue and pretty soon I come back and it's a rock. Even if I put it in my refrigerator, it still doesn't last that long. So what I did, you can buy these little tubes. So I don't mind popping a little tube open. And if I use it a couple of times and it goes bad, that's okay. I'm just throwing away a small amount. What I really found as far as the super glue is this Loctite super glue, Home Depot special. It works really well. The thing I like about it is the applicator is good, and it doesn't it seals it enough that it doesn't dry out. You squeeze it, a little bit comes out. You just squeeze the sides, take the top off. I'm not dropping it on my Apple computer, but you can see this, and you just squeeze it, and it comes right out. You could do a bead of it very nicely, and good stuff. It's lasted me a long time, which I like, because I use all kinds of different glues on different jobs.
Pete,
Yes.
what I have found is, I don't know whether your wife has these glass canning jars that have the rubber rings and the clamp on the top.
Yep. I have them. I'm the cooker in our family, and I have ball jars.
I save the silica things in my medicine.
Yep.
And throw them in that jar, and it dries out any kind of moisture, and it keeps the CA longer.
That's a great idea. I like that. I will do that because I do some canning and pickling and stuff, so I definitely have those ball jars, and I've got silica, and I can get some more. I think I once bought some on Amazon. Do you guys ever use wire glue? It's kind of
Never heard of it.
okay. So wire glue. One of the things I got in one of the train clubs that I belonged to, the North County Model Railroad Society up in Oceanside, they had block signals, and they wanted the front of the train always showed up in the sensors, but the back never showed up. So they wanted to put resistor wheels on the back of the train, so we knew when there was something occupying the block besides the engine. And I got some of this, and it's okay. It's not a good glue. It doesn't really hold things that well. It's conductive, which is the strength of it. It is conductive. I usually glue a resistor to the wheel with some other glue, and then use the wire glue just to make the connection between the resistor and the axle and the wheel. I just put a little dab on it, and it works great for that. As far as holding the resistor on, no, sorry, not going to happen. But I do a lot of, I think I've done close to 200 of those resistors on wheels for club members. Wood glue, you can always use the Formula 560, but I found this one is a pretty good one. The Elmer's Wood Glue Max. They make a bunch of different versions of their wood glue, from their white glue to their school glue to, the kind that the kids in kindergarten like to eat. Anyway, they make a lot of different ones. This one works pretty good. I've had no problems with it whatsoever. There's all kinds of wood glue out there. So my thing is I just stain everything first, and I don't have to worry about it. Let's see, what else do we have here? Wellbond is like an epoxy kind of glue, and it works really well. I don't use it a lot because I as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of different kinds of glues to choose from. But if I'm gluing like metal parts, I'll look at Wellbond more than Formula 560. But anyway, or Crafter's Pick. Says wood, tile, glass, leather. I mean, it works really well, and it doesn't dry out very much. So I've had this for a while, and it's still good. And then the old Zap. This is 15-minute epoxy. I'm a little slow, so I don't like the 5-minute stuff, but two part A, part B, mix them together in equal amounts, stir them up a little bit with a toothpick, and off you go. It's pretty good stuff. I'm seeing if this stuff. No, it's not dried out. It's just hard to move, but good stuff. And that's pretty much my the glues that I use, and so I'll take questions, comments. What do you guys use? What do you found that you just can't live without?
If you could put up that Loctite one again, the blue handle one, the Loctite.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it's Loctite. It's
Yeah. So yeah, when you're done with it, if the glue's all done, you take the holder apart. It makes a perfect brush holder.
Oh yeah, I guess it would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Works perfectly.
Yeah.
I also found that when you take it apart is that you get more glue out of the one that's inside of it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Get it all up.
Yeah, I'm sure there's still more left in there. I like it because I haven't had it dry out on me like the other ones do, but and it works good for applications where you would use thick super glue.
The Loctite super glue seals really well. That little top
Yeah,
clamps
that's
down and
the thing.
actually
It seals
prevents
real well.
You know, so make a point of putting the top on securely. What's inside, what people don't realize is it's just a flexible little squeeze tube inside in neat packaging that pinches the little tube.
Yeah.
So that's why you can tear it apart when you're done and get more glue out of the little tube. But I like it. And then the other thing I put in the comments is I found that I can get it at the dollar store cheaper than any place else.
Oh,
That often it's significantly cheaper than wherever else you find it. The Hobby Lobby or one of the hardware stores, the dollar store has it, and I use lots of it, so it's a good source.
cool. Thank you.
Suggestion for product to try with your glues. Look into Bob Smith Industries.
Yep.
The Accelerator Instaset for your CA glues plus Bob Smith Industries has, I believe, 8 or 10 different grades of CA glues, some that are compatible with styrofoam and everything else. That's exclusively what I use anymore.
They do, and
And-
they're good. In our shop, I didn't see it on sale at the shop that I bought this this at, or I haven't actually seen it for a while.
There's Justin's Displays online is a distributor for it and always has it at a really good price.
Oh, okay.
You can also
Um,
buy it you can buy it on Amazon, and you can buy it in like 8-ounce jars or bottles for the price of 2 3/4-ounce bottles.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I get 8-ounce bottles and I don't use a sprayer. I use a syringe and a hypodermic needle that's been blunted. So then you can put the accelerator exactly where you want it on the CA glue instead of wasting it.
So
Great idea.
I find goo is very valuable for doing things like gluing speakers into locomotives and that kind of thing. That old Walthers goo is a good standby. And then Martin had this idea of combining a little goo with a little ACC to create something to glue parts on. I find that works really well.
Really? Have to try
Yeah,
that.
it's an interesting kind of thing to do. The other thing is I've pretty much done what you've done, which is I tend to do all the wall weathering and coloring off before assembly, and then assemble it with canopy glue. And the thought process is twofold. One is that way it goes together. I think the canopy glue holds better than like white glue or some of those things. It doesn't move around very well. It dries clear. But the other thing that's interesting in canopy glue is if you put it on a part and let it sit for 5 minutes, it starts to congeal, and then you can put the parts together and they'll hold together right away. And so kind of like letting canopy glue preset a little bit before you put the parts together makes it really easy.
I use Walthers glue for gluing weights. I do a lot of properly weighting cars because most of the cars you buy, if you buy ready to run, they're not weighted correctly. So it works great for weights, and it works great for a lot of other things. However, I built a Walthers kit back when they had those stamped metal sides back when I was a kid. I put it together with glue and airbrushed it and did all kinds of stuff for it. And it was really a nice car. And a couple of years ago, I opened it up and it was back to being a kit because all of the goo had dried out and fell apart. And that was that.
But wait, that's a feature. Build it again. It gives
Yeah,
you
exactly. You get to build the
it's a
same
kit,
kit twice.
kit's so nice you had to build it twice.
Well, I figure at my age, I'm not going to have to worry about what I glue now falling apart. I won't be around to see it.
Hey,
I'm not
Peter,
worried about that.
a glue that I've found, and I use it a lot, is E6000.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of work by like adding small parts to things that I've printed, like stirrups to sides of box cars. And if you buy the big tubes of E6000, it's kind of tough to control it. But I found at Walmart, they sell the E6000s and maybe about 4 little applicator nozzles.
Oh,
You could squirt out just a little drop. And the nice thing is unlike a lot of the CA that I've used, where you actually have to hold it in place, this stuff grabs really quick. And
Really?
once it dries, it really does a nice job. Now, the other benefit to it is that once it does dry, if you have to take something apart, you can. Take a little bit of effort, but you can get it apart. So a friend of mine, Kevin Hunter, who's been on the show before to talk about touch toggles, he introduced me to E6000. And like I said, I use it all over the place.
cool. Good to know.
Mhm.
Who else?
One other glue that I found my wife put me onto, it was Eileen's tacky glue.
Yep.
Rather than using the yellow carpenter's glue, you use Eileen's tacky glue on wood because it gets tacky more quickly. But until it hardens, if you've made a mistake, you can take it apart, you can clean it off. If it a little bit squeezes out, it's very easy to clean up.
It is.
But I like the fact that it sets fairly quickly and you're building a wooden kit. You can kind of keep moving along and you don't have to spend long periods of time waiting for sections to dry. I do pause occasionally and let everything alone for a while to set, but I find that it sets much more quickly and gets tacky much more quickly than carpenter's glue.
I used Eileen's to lay cork roadbed and then track on top of it, and it worked great. And if you ever need it to come up, you can just get it wet and it'll come up again. Like if you made a mistake on your track work or anything, which is nice. Without being wet, it won't come up. It's permanent. Who else?
Hi,
Pete.
Pete, it's Clark.
Well, you got it, Clark.
How are you, Pete?
Good.
One of the things that I like to use is this for ACC. If we're talking ACC, I just came in on it, so I'm not sure exactly what you guys are all talking about.
Sure, go for it,
But
Clark.
these little, you can buy them from the tool man, but you can make your own. These little applicators, it's probably a dentist tool of some type, but it's just a small little hole here, and you dip that into your ACC accelerator, and all you have to do is touch it to the part, and that will come out via capillary action, and you can it'll instantly glue your piece. And if that clogs up, you just take a lighter to it and blow it out. But
Micromark makes one of those.
For they? Yeah.
For I don't know,
You
$20.
can-
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, I got those. I was getting those off the tool man at the convention. So
Oh, cool.
and they were like, you get 3 tools for $10 or something. So
Right. Yeah.
You know what those are, Clark? And Pete, is a sewing needle stuck in the end of a paintbrush hole.
That's hold on, please hold. I can show you the how
It's
I
a
make
heavy
my
duty sewing.
Yeah,
needle.
well, basically, I have a little clinic here where I make my own. I don't have it on this photo. Basically, it's just that's exactly what you're doing. You take a large sewing needle and you take a piece of wooden dowel and stick the needle in fairly far into it, and then you can just use that loop.
I found another super glue online from Amazon. I asked them to find one from industrial use, and they sent me one. It's called Aero Core. It's made in Canada. And that stuff is strong. I tell you, when you put it on, bang, it's done.
Didn't know that. I have to look.
Yep.
I'm one of those guys, if I see a new glue, a lot of times I'll just have to try it out. It's just how I got onto the faller, which I think more people would use it if it was more available over here.
You
Lost
went
your
mute,
sound.
Clark.
Yeah.
You're muted, Clark.
That should be an oxymoron.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yeah, I use the faller all the time for plastics and stuff. Now they have just come out. I don't know, Pete, if you know this, they just came out with a one for laser kits.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No, I didn't know that.
What
And
are you
you
sharing,
can,
Clark?
pardon?
I can't see what you're sharing. It went to Zoom and that was it.
Oh,
I see it.
I can see it.
Okay.
It's there.
yeah, this is the plastic one. Now this is the expert, and then the next one is the they have what they call the super, which is an orange one, and that really is just a little bit faster than this plastic one.
Is that what the difference is? It's just speed?
It's just
setting?
speed, yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing is when you're building DPM kits, Miles Hale put me onto this stuff for DPM kits because DPM kits are not really a true plastic. They're kind of a hybrid, and they're not a resin kit either. And this is really the glue to use for any DPM kit, period, bar none. And it will glue those things together, and you won't have any problems with getting them apart. Let's see. Yeah, here's my. So yeah, I use these for doing DPM kits. And if you don't know Miles Hale, Miles used to work for Woodland Scenics, who owns DPM, and he also used to work for the actual gentleman who designed these kits. So he does know what he's talking about.
Oh, this is great stuff. I really like it. It's my go-to. Yeah. You know, it doesn't sit in a drawer. It sits right on my workbench. Yeah. But it's hard to find around here.
If they're a Walthers dealer, you can get it. When I used to go to Train Fest, when they were holding Train Fest, I used to go to Walthers Direct, and I used to buy like 5 of those tubes at a time of each, the super and the regular. But I've got so many now, I will never have to buy another one.
Huh.
but I don't dry out.
No, and I also go ahead, Pete.
Oh, they don't dry out.
No.
I've had them for quite a while.
But Clark, you brought up something I think that we should not gloss over, which is almost all the hobby shops get a shipment once every week or once every couple of weeks from Walthers.
Yeah.
And all of them, if you call them and say, I want these 3 bottles of paint and these 3 glues, they will order them and put them on the next order, which means you don't have to pay any shipping and you get a trip to the hobby shop to pick it up.
Yep.
So, you know, I think it's a really good way of getting that stuff is just call your hobby shop and say, hey, I'd like to add these items on your next Walthers order, and they'll do it for you and you can go pick them up. And supports the local hobby shop and I think saves you money.
Clark mentioned the fact that he uses a piece of wire to clear out the Fowler spout. I've had a lot of problems with that, and I found that a single strand of number 18 gauge stranded wire is the size that I have to use to clear that spout out in the tube. So that's an easy solution to doing that.
You know what else works really well is a Bic lighter. And just when you get it a little bit heated, just squeeze a little bit.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute.
You're trying to get the top off those Fowler bottles?
You know, they're like welded on. You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna do it. I tried once myself.
I used pliers and vice grips and everything else, and it wouldn't come off.
No, they're welded on, those suckers.
Yeah.
But yeah, try the laser glue. I've really enjoyed using it lately. I personally, I think it's just canopy glue, but it comes in the same applicator.
I didn't know that Walthers had Fowler. That's really good information, because I do exactly that. I order stuff from my local hobby shop, and they call me and go pick it up.
Yeah, no, Walthers has it in stock 99% of the time.
Good. Okay.
Actually, they've got all three. They have the laser kit glue too.
Oh, great. Great to know. Then I won't have to bring any back from Germany. Who else? Anybody else have some ideas of what they use?
Yes. I'm in Australia. One of the Loctite products is a two-part super glue for plastics. It comes in two parts. There is a primer, and then there's the actual glue. Now, this is one of the few things that I've found that will stick acetyl to styrene. The bond is strong if you try and tear it off against the bond. It does not survive sideways impacts real well, but I suspect that's the case with most super glues. It's just the nature of the bond. So if you try a straight pull on it, yep, you won't shift it. If you hit it with a hammer sideways, yep, you're going to tear the bond.
Huh. That makes sense.
But it's one of the few things I've found that will actually stick stuff to acetyl and similar slippery plastics.
That's good to know.
And with that, I'm going back to lurk mode.
Hey, John, I did hear that we lost a fantastic guy in Australia. I was notified when John Saxon passed away, and very sad to hear that.
I wanted to note that last time I was in Rome, that was last summer, I stopped by a hobby shop, and I guess Ravel, however you pronounce it, they also sell their glue, which is very similar to Fowler's Expert.
Yeah, they've got a line of glue and paint. I don't think it's really well distributed over here, but it certainly is in Europe. But who else? Anybody else?
I do a lot of styrene and different plastics building, and I found that there are a full line of adhesives that you can purchase specifically for that are more industrial if you use a lot of it.
Okay.
I buy it by the pint.
Wow.
I'll go through a pint of styrene glue a year, but I'm currently working on a 2-foot, basically a 2-foot square structure with a full interior that's 100% styrene. So
is it a derivative like of MEK, or is it something different?
I can't remember off the top of my head what the company is. I don't have it in front of me, but I will try to share it at during one of the Zoom meetings at some later time. But it's specifically like if you get an acrylic display case built, there's stuff that's specifically for acrylics, stuff specifically for polystyrene. There's stuff that I'm assuming it's probably the same as the Fowler's for the laser cut kits. Chemical composition of it that'll let you use the polystyrene and the polyacrylic type plastics and be able to glue them together with a weld bond and whatnot. But yeah, I go through a lot of that. Different materials. If I was near my bench, I'd be able to tell you what brand it was and whatnot, but it's something to look into. And then you get a refillable applicator bottle that reminds me a lot of the Fowler bottles, but you can unscrew the lid to put whatever adhesive you happen to want to put in it.
Yeah, you can buy those little bottles on through Amazon for like $8 for like 30 of them.
Okay.
I use them all the time. I put white glue, or not. I don't like white glue. I use either yellow glue or not a big white glue person.
Do you use
Learn a lot
the
about glue.
canopy glue?
I use canopy glue, yeah, but I don't use anything like Elmer's or anything like that.
Yeah.
And for glue and track, I use water soluble contact cement. I can put track down really fast and it pops up. You don't have to worry about damaging your track either. Right? Guys at our club were in a tizzy when I said we're going to use this, and they said no. I said okay, let me show you, and I showed it to them, and they're like, okay. So that was the end of that. That's all we did is use contact cement.
Well, it's pretty forgiving if you make a mistake.
Yeah.
Wet it. Hopefully.
Well, the contact cement, all you have to do is put like a butter knife underneath it and it'll just pop right off, and it cleans up from the back of you don't use a lot. I mean, a lot of people think you have to put down so much track or glue for track. You're not fighting. You're only fighting the flex of the flex track. You're not fighting you're not fighting for a locomotive that's going to knock it around or anything. And then once you ballast it, it's not going anywhere.
I think I've got a pretty unusual solution for gluing down track. I don't remember where I heard about it, but I use DAP Alex indoor caulk.
Yeah.
It remains flexible.
Yeah.
It dries clear, and you can take up your track if you want to realign it. It will peel up and come off of the track with no damage to the track, so you can reuse it.
Yeah, it's the same as this contact cement. The nice thing about the contact cement, you don't have to wait. Like you just keep going. There's none of this drying. I mean, I can only, literally 50, 60, 75 feet in minutes because I dry fit it all and make sure it's perfect. And then I come back and start gluing, and man, it's just so much faster.
Something's happened to our guest, our host, Jim.
Oh.
He's not on.
I see his picture.
I see him.
Oh, well.
Jim's here.
You're having a lot of troubles there.
I guess so, eh? I don't see him.
It's a Canadian thing.
Yeah.
Must be.
It was on earlier.
With the exchange rate, you only get so many Americans.
That's right, man. There he is, in bright sunshine.
Anyway,
You're awful quiet, Jim. We couldn't hear you.
Pete, you really stimulated a great discussion tonight on glue. I can't thank you enough for doing it.
Certainly.
Pete's going to be back the end of this month with another segment that I think will stimulate more discussion on paintbrushes and what to use where and how.
I was just going to say that.
So thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate
it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate I'm going to hang out for a while, and thanks so much for having me. This is always a fun discussion. Paintbrushes will be a fun discussion. Anyway, thank you so much.
I had no idea there were that many glues out there.
There's a lot more than even this.
I understand.
Nobody ever once mentioned testers.
I got
Oh,
some.
yeah,
That works
well, yeah, we could have done that, or,
Or Ambroid, do they still make glue?
You know,
They
the
do.
nitrocellulose is not made anymore. That's my favorite glue. They don't make it anymore.
All right, well, let me
Okay,
move.
thanks. I'm gonna
Let me
mute.
move to okay, let me move to a different subject for a while here and introduce Tom Farrell, who is scratch building his new layout. And he's done some beautiful work on it in a lot of different areas. So Tom, we're interested to see, I think you're finishing up your fishing village tonight.
That's correct. Thank you again for having me. It's appreciated. This evening, I'm going to show you what I call super detailing these structures I've been working on. So we could call this barnacles and bird droppings. So these are the three structures that I'm going to feature this evening up front here. If you remember from a previous show, this was the very first bait shop that I made. And, you know, almost looks like it's abandoned or vacant without any details surrounding it. You know, you look at it and it just looks like it's an abandoned building. So when I say super detail, I mean, we're adding things like figures and garbage cans and things of that nature, as you'll see. And it really makes these buildings come alive. Just for location, this left photograph shows you this first structure, then we'll move to this middle one, and then to this end structure. But these are all complete now, and these buildings are just sitting there. That's the next month's project. But here's a little roof detail. Jim Kello asked several months back, he says, do you detail the roofs of your building? And why, you know, what are some of the reasoning behind that? Well, if your layout, my layout starts at 48 inches high, and the first thing you see is the roofs of these buildings. So I think it's important to add a lot of detail to the roofs, and it's pretty evident on this particular structure. You know, it's a shanty, so they've put all kinds of scrap and it's all kinds of wood and textures and interesting things to draw the eye to. But that's an idea. That's an example of super detailing. These are the actual components that I'm going to use, the parts that I'm going to use to quote super detail this building. I got these fenders. They're old tires from Frenchman River Model Works. This guy has a lot of interesting components and kits on his site. We're going to be featuring a My Build on that in January. Berkshire Valley Models is another good source of cast metal components. These garbage cans and this drum came from them. Not entirely sure where this came from. Northeastern Scale Lumber is where I got these lamp shades. They come molded in green. These are painted here. There's two types of brooms are from Berkshire Valley Models. Builders and Scale is another component manufacturer. This is cast pewter as well. Smokestack wall mount. I'm not sure where I got this. I looked online to try and find where I bought this collection of this casting here. I don't think it's made any longer. I just couldn't find it. And then my little sign here, Skippers, is just scratch built off of PowerPoint. So there we are. See how that thing just jumps alive with people and barrels and garbage cans and lights and signs, and just literally pops, comes to life. These tires, I just took a pin vise with a drill and I drilled 2 holes in here, and I used this hemp string that I got at a Hobby Lobby. I simply primed all these metal components with a primer, And then I painted them with old silver in the case of the cans here and rusted them. These are just acrylic paints over the primer. These pewter figures come from Artista. They come pre-painted. This is just very inexpensive hemp cord from Hobby Lobby. This is my boat from previous show. The only thing I did from the last time you may have seen this is I put this fella on here. He's looking into the hold, seeing what's left in the hold. Just everybody's doing some sort of action. I added this these willows here. Just add a little detail. I'll start detailing out. I'll move from the water to the shoreline to these buildings up top. So I started doing a little detail here. You can see some of the little stuff I put on here, and just makes for a nice catch your eye. Now, I didn't want to forget about the barnacles and the bird droppings. My birds are on the way. They haven't arrived yet, but there'll be pigeons and seabirds hanging on some of these posts. These barnacles are nothing more than a fine Woodland Scenics ballast that I glued on there with Elmer's glue. And then I painted them gray. Then I painted them white, highlighted with white. Then I hit it with an alcohol wash. It just came off like a very nice barnacle. When you put in these Artista or any figures, you like to have them doing some action. So in this case, the guy behind here has, he's tying off the boat while this guy's pulling in with this metal wire. So, look, it has the appearances that there's some action going on. This fella's carrying a box. This guy's actually looking at the next bait shop. These are those bumpers. They're just tires. Fenders is what the proper word is. And there's my sign, Skippers. So anyway, this there's a nice close-up of the guys working. The weathering's real nice on that. This is the next structure. Pat and Phyllis's bait shop. This is without any quote super detailing. So you can see these boards are too fresh. There's no real weathering on the side here. This quote billboard is just glued on there. I want to say it's basically a lifeless structure at this point. I mean, it's a nice structure. It's a good, these are all scratch built, but the first thing I wanted to add was a jib crane. And it's a simple little kit with these tiny little parts. I just used a plastic testers, styrene, cement to put this together. And it's a grant line. There it is put in place. We'll get to the details in a moment. Putting that chain in there was just a lot of fun. I just want you guys to know how much fun I had. Putting that in there and hooking that onto this hook was just one of the best hours I've ever spent, I think. You can see these guys here on this right picture in focus. They're actually playing cards. And I put some more of those fenders on. They come in a 10-pack. I don't like to normally duplicate or use these same tires everywhere, but I couldn't really find any of sufficient size, so I just use them on the adjacent building. Here's a little roof addition I put on here. Just a simple piece of wood, some shingles. Another detail, I see there's dual piers here. I roped them together. It's a nice little detail. And here I framed the sign, which really makes that pop. And I weathered the entire building with black alcohol washes, and with white paint I put bird droppings on here. There's some more barnacles, nothing more than fine. It was actually buff color when it started, but like I said, I painted it gray, then white, then I put some alcohol wash on there. Then I went back with the green and touched it up, but it's a nice effect. You also notice the water here. I put Mod Podge on my resin cast water. That gave it additional depth because you couldn't just see right through it. It's tough to see in that photograph. There's the top of that roof. See those shingles? I just stained them and then I hit them with a white highlight, a dry brush. And I put a smokestack and a little air conditioner on top there. And I did do a reference check. They had air conditioners back in the 20s and 30s. They weren't widely used, but there is some justification for it. So that's the two buildings. There's like I say, once the front of this scene is complete, and the next, I'll switch to the next row and do these buildings one at a time. But here's the third bait shop. Again, it's a nice little scratch build. It's interesting, but it looks abandoned without any figures or anything on these decks. And so it's a nice little building. These are the detail parts I am going to that I use for the detailing of this third and final bait shop that we're going to. Again, these are cast pewter. I had to sand these flashings off and clean these up, take some of the mold marks off. These are those tires. That's the wrong side of the tires, and just some detail items here. And look at that. I mean, doesn't that that's just a huge difference from a vacant, desolate building. I mean, everything pops on here.
Yep.
Thurston's Bait and Tackle. I mean, I decided to name everything after Gilligan's Island. So, but see the garbage cans again, they're painted old silver from Blokewell and rusted. The figures are pre-painted. Look at the side here, you see my shovel and broom. I put a Coke machine here. I did a reality check. Those did exist in the 1930s. Again, the same bumper treatment and bird droppings, and below are the barnacles. You can see a little bit of barnacles there. There's that tool, that work desk. So the first thing I did is primed the entire cast pewter workbench with a gray primer. Then I took a light colored brown and painted the top of the workbench. And then I went back with a darker brown and highlighted it. And then how I paint all these accessories is I just grab different colors of little bottles of paint and just arbitrary. There's no rhyme or reason. I just paint them all different colors. I did want my pipe wrenches to be red, but that's there. And these are just old silver. It's really easy to paint. You just highlight it. Trying to create the illusion that these three guys are talking to each other. He's facing this guy. This guy's doing something with parts here. He's has his hand up and he's talking to this guy. It's just the illusion of something going on here is the idea. There's the scene. I don't normally show my fascia board, but I couldn't figure out how to get a profile shot of it. But those are the three buildings. There's the boat, and there's the covered bridge, and these three are just sitting there, or these four structures are just, those are next on my list. There's looking from the bridge. There's my river going across there. It's a really neat looking scene. You urge you, if you're ever in Bloomington, to have a look at my railroad. This is really, I try to convey what it looks like with a photograph, but it really is quite an interesting scene. And when this is all done, it's going to be a pretty neat little shanty town. And that's it.
I think it looks magnificent, Tom. I think you're just ought to really be congratulated. That is just, from what you started with, that is gorgeous.
Thank you very much.
Anybody have any comments for Tom?
Beautiful job.
Thank you very much.
Each one of the building, each one of the structures just comes alive.
You know, those details, I call it super detailing, really make a big difference. I'll tell you, they
do.
You can see it in, like, for example, this building behind me, even though it's just in sepia, you know, you add all these little details, they just come alive, you know. Yeah. And that's what gives me a real charge with the hobby is, you know, the detailing. I don't think you can over detail something. Just takes a lot of time. Yeah.
Really beautiful, really is. You know, maybe sometime you can give us a real hints on how to thread that wire through. I mean, that's got to be an easy process.
You start with a bottle of scotch and take it from
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to turn to Steve Sherrill. Remember, Steve came up with this great idea. What do you want to talk about? And that's how I introduce him each week. So, Steve, what do you want to talk about?
First, I got to figure out how to get these fingers apart from that glue. I tried all those glues, and this is what I ended up with. So, you know, anyway, that was very interesting in the glue. And I also want to mention that Tom has a Facebook group that you can try to be a member of and see more of his work. So yeah. It's definitely worth, you know, applying for membership to be a part of that. I was accepted, and thank you, Tom.
Thank you for the plug. It's the Rustic Buff, the ON30 Rustic Buff, an old Gothic model railroad on Facebook, and has my old railroad on there, and then the new one's starting to fade in. But thank you for the plug. We got 700 members.
You don't need much help.
Want to get it to 1,000.
The first 1,000 gets what? Tonight, I wanted to kind of ask a couple of questions here, and I'd like to get a lot of input if I can. I want to ask a question. The questions are you a model railroader or are you a railroad modeler? I want everybody to think about those two terms for just a minute. I kind of separate those two as, to make it simple, people who have a layout and people who don't. And that's very simple and takes you know, a lot of people. We have armchair modelers who I think are railroad modelers. We have people who build prototype railroads, and they're probably model railroaders. And then we have guys like me who aren't prototype modelers, but have, you know, track down build modelers and simply operate my railroad to have fun. We have some very good builders of models in this group. I don't know how many of you have railroads or track that were a part of any group that does operate locomotives and trains. So I get a little confused as to where we are as individuals in the hobby. And so if I, ask, what are you doing? Are you a builder, a modeler, or where are you? And, so I asked that question. If anybody can give me an answer where they are.
So Steve, this is Phil. I would kind of suggest that maybe need to think about it a little slightly differently. I mean, I think there are people that model railroads, and their interest is primarily in railroading, and that folks on that side of the coin tend to be the guys who do operations, and it's modeling the context of a railroad. Then there are people that happen to model railroad stuff, but they're not that much interested in that railroad side. And I think that kind of comes down to it. It struck me for a long time that there are four kind of, I'll call for lack of a better word, areas of the hobby. There are people who like to build things, whether you're building a building model, you're doing scenery, it's the act of actually creating something. Then there are folks who like to run trains. They've created an environment where they can run trains through it and watch trains run through it, but their interest is predominantly in watching trains run. Then there are folks who are collectors, people who collect things, and they get a lot of their value in the hobby out of collecting, whether that's collecting brass models or collecting plastic models or collecting kits. They're basically collectors. And then the last group are the folks who actually like to do operations. I mean, it was a really interesting kind of view of the number of layouts in the NMRA convention that had little to no scenery. And it was kind of, somebody built the layout, they got it to the point they could operate on it, they could have a crew come over and do an operating session, and they were going to do scenery, but it really wasn't that important to their primary focus, which was emulating a railroad in model form. And so I think there's kind of because there are people who build layouts for different reasons. I mean, some build layouts to have an operational environment to recreate a railroading context. Some people just build a layout to run their trains through and watch their trains run. So I think that you have to be a little cognizant of those differences in how people do things. And there are prolific modelers that don't have a layout. And there really are modelers who build a lot, but don't have a layout. So, I think the question is, are they model railroad? They are modeling railroad stuff, but they're not personally trying to emulate a railroad context or environment. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. My thought was the people who build very, very nice models, dioramas, from my standpoint, I don't see how they're just satisfied with that. Why they don't have a train running through that with some kind of movement. I just get a little bit confused as a modeler who has always had a train layout and always built models, how you can have a quality of when you go to like a narrow gauge convention and that guy will spend a year building one model and it'll be very detailed, and then they don't have any layout to really show it off. The only time they show it off is at a convention. I just think that there's,
Steve,
yes.
My new rustic buff and old Gothic railroad, I mean, it does three things for me. It's designed for continuous running, so you can just run trains round and round and round. It's also designed for point-to-point operation. And then obviously I detail the living hell out of it. So I cover three of the, and it's loosely based on Southern Indiana and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And it's all fictitious. So, I think it's such a flexible hobby. You just pick and choose what you want to do with it,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just would like to see, again, from my standpoint, everybody has a train layout. I'm lucky that I have train layouts and great modelers, master model railroads within short driving distance of where I live, that I can see all of these facets of the hobby put together. I just think that the hobby is really a combination of all those things for me. And when I see, modelers who only have one or two facets of that, there's more growth that they can develop, So I just, yeah.
Pat here. I think the key word we got to remember this is a hobby.
Yes.
And not everyone's tastes are the same. And not everyone has the room to build a huge layout. And some have the room to do modeling and detail and show it off at some of the shows. I mean, it's everybody's tastes are different. If they were all the same, I think it'd be pretty boring. Let's put it that way. But anyway, it's just, I find it's a hobby that we enjoy. And some of us put more emphasis on the detailing of stuff or the emphasis on the scenery, or their emphasis is on electrical. It has all of these entities tied into one, if you want to use it that way. So
yes.
That's the way I look at it. I mean, not everybody's going to be an MMR. I mean, but they'll really do their best at what they like to enjoy at what they're doing.
Right. Well, I agree with that. I think that, like you just mentioned, some people love electronics. Well, this is a great time to be in electronics right now. There's a lot of stuff that will really challenge you. And they help modelers who are not as adept at electronics as they are. And so they fulfill a gap. And they also, you'll see they'll pick up a throttle and they'll run a train and enjoy that, even though they don't have the room for a layout. I think that opens up an area where we have the small layouts and shelf layout designs that are becoming more and more popular now, I believe. I don't know what you saw or whoever went to the NMRA convention, what kind of layouts did you see? Were they huge? Were they small? Were they highly detailed? Share with us what you saw. So maybe we know we're not out here as lone wolves without a layout, or you have a little shelf layout or a micro layout, that there are other people who are in the same boat as we are and the same state of mind. We're all individuals. We don't get together but maybe once or twice a year, except on Zooms. And Zooms are only a certain length of time that we can share our thoughts and what we're doing. So I just, kind of always have wondered, there's always been a separation between a model railroader and a railroad modeler. And that's where I am. That's not where, the hobby is the hobby, like you say. I just believe that there's, 6 or 7 parts to make this a wonderful hobby, where you can really enjoy it the most that you can get out of it. And again, there are people who like building just dioramas. Some people like just building bridges, and they do it from an engineering standpoint, and it's perfect. Whereas, you and I might throw something together that, looks good, but probably wouldn't, you couldn't run a bucket across it, type of thing. But it's just such a great hobby that you kind of want everybody to be, in the perfect state that maybe you think you're in.
And I personally think that's incredibly pejorative. The reality is, I think the majority of people that are in the hobby probably don't have a layout.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. I there are an awful lot of people that don't have a layout. They may be part of a club. They may be part of one or more layouts that they participate with an owner in, that they're kind of a group. I mean, I think there's a large percentage of the modeling community there. And, I think the perspective here is really simple. Why do you choose to model something that's a model railroad thing versus a tank? So why do you go into model railroading versus military modeling and tanks? And tanks are clearly standalone, with some exceptions. They're not automated or operational. They're very much static models, and they're kind of individual, and they fit in the class. And we have the option for people to do that, but then also to participate. If you build a really great engine, you build that really great one-off ON30 little engine, you can go to a club and run it on somebody's club, or you can go over to somebody's house and run it at their house and take pictures. And so I think there's this idea of the immutability you get of, as a community, we can offer people who don't have space for a layout, a space that they can get involved in building things for a layout and building the components layout, either as a club or part of a group. And I think kind of trying to define that you're defined by whether or not you have a layout is incredibly pejorative, and may be very much kind of the thing that cause people to say, well, if I don't think I'm ever going to be able to build a layout, then maybe I shouldn't be a model railroader. In other words, if that's the real quote unquote barrier line that says you're not a real model railroader. And I kind of take back, the latest NMRA we had out here in the Coast Division doesn't have a layout. He participates in 2 layouts, and if you go to both of those layouts, you'll see absolutely amazing structures he's built on those layouts. And so, to kind of come back and say he's less because he doesn't have a layout in his garage or in his space, I think is a real challenge. I think that's, between us, I think that's been one of the problems in this hobby. I think it's one of the problems the NMRA has had, is this exclusionary thing, right? You're not a real model railroader if you do 3-rail. You're not a real model railroader if you don't have a big layout. And I think that causes people to say, well, maybe I should just go do something else. So I think I would have much more inclusive view of saying we're all part of the model railroading hobby. We just have different interests. And what we want to do is connect people together with different interests, so you can have a more fulfilling experience, and you can take advantage of the fact that things move, even if you don't have a layout at home. I don't know. I tend to want to be more inclusive versus drawing lines and saying, some of us are on this side of the line and some of us on this side of the line. If you're on this side of the line, these pigs are more equal on this side of the line. I personally think just take those lines off and say, I don't care whether you have a layout or not. If you build amazing structures and you partner with Tom to put them on his layout, that's great. Or if you build a great ON30 engine and Tom has, a day open and you bring your engine over and run it, you now are taking advantage of the fact that it's mobile and you can put it into an environment. You just don't own the environment. I don't know. I tend to want to be more inclusive because I think that's how we grow the hobby.
Well, I know,
Phil, I couldn't agree more. And Phil, that's why this is a modeling show. I don't care whether it's 3-rail, whether it's 2-rail, whether you have a model railroad. I don't care. If you're a modeler, that's all, then this is a show for you, because we'll hopefully help you build better models, and you'll want to build more models. And I couldn't agree more. I don't see the advantage, particularly in this day and time, of people necessarily having to have a model railroad at home that they own in order to be in the model railroad family. I think those days are gone. I think the days of the large railroads are gone, because people can't afford them and they don't have space for them, and they don't have the time.
Well, I agree with you on that.
I've heard Phil say, for example, here I am 60 years old. I think you're 60 or 60, right about 60. And if it takes me 20 years to build the kind of railroad that I want to have at home, am I willing to take the time in the next 20 years of my life to build it?
Well, what Jim brings up is actually a really interesting comment. So I was actually going to show this at some point. Visit a layout up in Yuba City, and it's a 35 by 55 foot building with an absolutely amazing O-scale layout in it. Duplicates 2 cities, Marysville and Yuba City, that are right in that area. Also, as the rest of the Western Pacific, has about half size, and that's in terms of the length of the buildings, version of the Sacramento shops. Just an amazing layout. And when I talked to the owner, I said, well, when did you start building this? He said, oh, I started building it in 2009. I built the building. And I started in 2010 with a young man who worked for the contractor, and we started building bench work. And I realized very quickly that I was not going to be able to complete what I wanted to do. And he said, so I hired, he actually hired Vargas Brothers. There are two brothers out here that run a custom model railroad building company, and hired them. And they did most, as far as I could tell, most of the work. And a lot of the buildings and stuff he'd had built by other people. You know, what I realized was, I looked at him, he's in his 80s now. He really was not able to even come out to the building where they were still building on his model railroad. And what I realized was, he made a decision 10 years ago that there was no way he could finish to the level he wanted to, the model railroad he wanted to build. So he hired somebody to build it. You know, and there's another side. I was talking to one of the guys from down in Santa Cruz, and you know, this is where Jim Vale was and a bunch of very good modelers. And he made the comment, he said, I moved here 20 years ago and I met all these amazing model railroaders who'd all been here for about 20 years, and they were finishing their layouts, and they all helped me with my layout. And we worked on my layout. Now it's 20 years later, and my layout is almost getting to be done. And again, coming back to Jim's comment, for that person who's 65 and all of a sudden has the space and the time to build a layout, you begin to look at 20 years and the probability of having time to enjoy it is less. So, you know, I think the same thing applies to the operations guys. A lot of guys that build an operating layout, their goal is to get to the point where they can have that big operating session and emulate an actual railroad. And scenery and buildings are really a secondary accoutrement to that.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a really interesting thought process about, you know, I used to kind of have this thing, I walked in, I'd see a layout that was a plywood Pacific, and it was like, wow, you know, not much here. But then when I realized a lot of those guys, for them, it's that operation thing, which, by the way, you know, for all of us here that don't do operations, it's a whole different challenge for you than building a model, right? Building a model is one kind of intellectual challenge. Taking on a very heavy, high volume yard and figuring out how to switch it, how to block the cars, how to get them to the right point, how to build the trains, and how to do it in a way that you don't screw up the whole railroad. That's a completely different intellectual challenge. And I think, you know, all these things are good, and it's what people get excited about. And I think I think we should be very inclusive. Model railroading is everything. There are some people that are more modelers and some people that are more railroaders. I would almost say it that way. You know, the railroaders are more the operations focused folks. The modelers are more the people who build things, whether you build, you know, and both of them can build a layout. The layouts just may have different goals. One may be incredibly detailed and not designed for operations, and one may be much less finished and scenic and detailed and built for operations. Anyway, enough said. I'm saying too much, dominating. Sorry.
No, you're doing
I just
good.
wanted to say, I just wanted to say one of the things I haven't heard mentioned tonight is modular model railroading, like Fremo. I belong to a Fremo club, and we assemble a whole bunch of modules together, and you know, bingo, we got this great big layout to run, and we can do operations. We can just sit back and watch it go, but every time we set up, it's a little different setup, so it keeps it fresh. And the thing is, we're talking about a lot of people that don't have big layouts. That is a nice outlet, because now you can run that long train on a long layout, or it can be a short train depending on your sidings. But anyway, it's just another aspect of the hobby that it's quite well enjoyed in Southern Ontario here, and it also, I think, in the States it's really big too compared to what it was before. So it's just another way of expressing your modeling and your work, and it's good. It's a lot of fun.
And,
Anyway.
and I think that's, you know, one of the huge advantages to modulars. I'm part of an ON30 group. We're going to do 5 setups between now and Christmas, including at the California State Railroad Museum and the round table there. So we do fairly large setups. I mean, we typically have at least 20, sometimes 35 to 40 modules we set up. And, you know, the other thing that's great about that is that you're actually out showing model railroading to the public. and it's shown in a way that's addressable. I mean, the thing that's interesting is the biggest barrier to model railroading for a 30 or 40-year-old is space.
Mhm.
They don't have space. So what I do is we have a 2x4 foot module that's a raw module that we take to shows, and we put it up, set it up with the feet on it, and say, build this module. And the point is to tell somebody, you can take that module and hang it on the wall. You guys saw the module that I guess I got teased a bit for the pictures of the module last week. That's that Wilder Ranch module. That module, if you look underneath it, it's actually got a gate handle, like you put on an outdoor gate mounted in the middle of the module, and you can pick it up by that gate handle and just move the module around. And you can actually take it and glue it, put hooks on a wall and hang it on a wall and hang it up as art on a wall. And so, the idea of being able to say to someone, you don't have to dedicate a bedroom. I mean, people in 2 or 3 bedroom houses don't have a bedroom to generate. They don't want to give up their garage if they have it. So, all of a sudden the idea of, I can build my own 4-foot module and be part of this group and go do that. I think that's, incredible way to get people engaged in the hobby and starting up. So same thing with Fremont. It doesn't matter what modular group it is, whether it's an HO, ON30, doesn't really matter which one it is. It's, it's the idea you're getting into a group, and it's the same, the other benefit it brings is the benefit this meeting brings, which is the social benefit of the social interaction, the groups you build, which is kind of the other side of model railroading we really don't talk about as much. Is each one of those things tends to lead you to different groups.
This is what I try to do with the micros when I show them, is to, when I talk to people and find out that, hey, they're planning some big railroad, like you say, 30 by 50. And with my own experience, I know that, that's like forever. I try to talk them into, or tell them, hey, start out with something small and develop your techniques, and you'll still be enjoying the hobby and running trains. You'll still be able to go to the shows and buy stuff. And it's just another way to show people that you don't need a lot of space. It's the same thing with the Fremos. The modules for the ON30, the 2x4. You put a couple of 2x4s together, and you have, what's a 2x8, and you can put a scene and have a little running on a 2x8, which doesn't take up that much room in a garage. If you live in an area that you have some nice weather in the garage, or in a part of a bedroom somewhere. There are just lots of things that we can do as model railroaders or modelers to, enjoy the hobby a little bit more, I think, rather than just, putting a model on the shelf. Now, when you went to the NMRA convention, did they have any small layouts on display?
There were not very many small layouts. Bedroom size was kind of the smallest I saw there. And, being in Dallas, there were some very large integrated layouts with homes. I mean, we're 2,000 square foot built into the house of space above the garage and part of the house that was a layout. And then, external buildings that were, 45, 50 by 25. So there are a number of very large layouts that people are building, but they tend to all be folks that are in their 60s that are mainly retired and have moved into a retirement home. I mean, retirement home not being a retirement home, but a home that they're planning on living their retirement out in.
Yeah, that's, my first layout. I had lived in that house for 15 years. And then, I'm constructing this new layout, which is quite large, 35 feet by, let's call it 10 or 12. And it's a little daunting, the amount of, if you look at how long it's going to take to super detail a layout of that size, you've got your hands full, there's a lot of time investment there, but that's why I'm doing it, so the end justifies the means. Every day it's what I do, so.
Tom, are you able to take a lot from your old layout and work it into your new layout?
All the structures, so I got a big jump start there. None of the track work, none of the bench work, but all the structures, are just sitting around the layout. They're all on plywood bases, and as I move around the layout, I integrate them into the new layout. So it won't take 15 years to get where I was in the last layout, but it'll take every bit of 5.
So are you concentrating now on the structures, or are you do you have enough rolling stock and engines?
I have enough, several hobby shops of engines and model. I have so much.
I remember. So I remember the shelf.
I have, there's no lack of engine or rolling stock for the rustic buff. They're in boxes after boxes. What I'm doing is working on where you enter the railroad. We enter the railroad room, you go up the steps, and the first thing you see is what's behind me. I'm working on just the first impact when you walk into the room. So I'm working clockwise, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve, I think you opened a great subject for tonight's discussion. Thank you so very much for doing that.
Okay.
Well, listen, it's getting close to our 2-hour limit here, but I've got a couple of things I need to tell you and talk to you about. We want to be visible at the upcoming Amherst show. The Amherst show is October 14th and 15th. And what I need is somebody that's going to be there that would be interested in manning our table for a period of time. We have one person, Greg Cassidy, who has volunteered to man it one of the days. And if we got somebody else that could take care of the other day, then we can go forward with having a table. I hate to ask Scott to give us a table for free if it's going to be vacant for most of the time, because that's just not fair to somebody else. So if you're interested in helping us at the Amherst show, my email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com, and just let me know so that we can tell Scott to reserve a table for us. We'll have flyers or Xerox copies of our flyers available for the table, and we'll also have our banner that can be set up at the table. So if you're interested in helping promote our scholarship and promote New Tracks, this would be your opportunity at the Amherst show. And of course, it won't cost you anything to get in, but it would be a big help if you're interested. Just let me know. The other thing is the caboose that we're going to show you tonight is part of Pat Rivard's layout. And we have been asking for people to send in some short videos of their layouts that we can use for the caboose section of our shows. Pat was kind enough to send in the one for tonight, but we don't have one for Wednesday night coming up on the 13th. So if anybody has a short video that we can use for the caboose section of the show, please send it to us. And the person you need to send it to is Phil. Phil, you want to tell them how to send it?
Yeah, I'll put an email in there. So send me a link. If you can email it to me, email it to me. If not, I'll send you a link to upload it to the drive, to our drive, and then we can get it off the drive and use it. So that's the easy way to do it. Unless you just like to play it yourself as a video. If you have a video, you're welcome to play it yourself if you know how to do that. But I will put my email in the chat for anyone who wants to send me an email.
Thanks so much. And anybody that has something like that would like to show us one of the cabooses, we'd love to be able to show what you all are building for your model railroad as part of the show. So with that said, let's go to tonight's caboose. of Pat Rivard's layout. And that, folks, is it for this evening. Thank you so very much for being with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. Until next week, great.